Trevor.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
And I'm Steve.
This is BSS Sports.
Fires to the end zone. It's caught. It's Greg Lewis. Touchdown.
Brooks with one. Lets it fly at the horn. It's gone.
Here's Crosby with a burst of speed up the middle. Gets open. Score.
A grand slam for A-Rod.
Pure genius from David Beckham.
And it's in. Thierry Henry with a bullet.
With Thomas Brooks, Steve Shields, and Trevor Struthers. Only on 91X.
So, in NBA news, we're Canadians. You know what that means? The Toronto Raptors. Jurassic Park taking on the Pacers in matchup number 1. And guess what? They lost 100-90.
I'm just hoping it's not a relapse of last year, because that would be terrible. But they actually came out of the gates looking really good in the first 2 quarters, and it just seemed to fall apart after that.
This is about to go on a 3-year run, though, Trevor. Is this not concerning?
I mean, I guess it's a little concerning. It's a little different, I think, from last year. Last year, Washington was a deeper team than what I feel Indiana is, and Game 1 was pretty much the Paul George show. And if that continues, then the Raptors are in trouble. But if they can turn that around, and if DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry play the way they should, then they should be able to win the series.
Well, it's kind of weird to see that Paul George is one of the few people who have come back from a serious injury and been very productive over it. And kind of leads me to think, is it a mental thing when recovering from an injury, or do you think that most people's bodies just heal differently?
I think it's definitely a combination of both. Like, the mental aspect of it has got to be hard, especially because there's going to be so much hype around you. If you're a top-notch player like George was, you can even make the comparison to what Rose did coming back from injuries. There's always going to be hype around you if you're going to come back as strong as you were previously a player. So,
well, Trevor, we'll put this to the Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook comparison. Basically, they had sort of the same injury.
Yeah. It was a case of Derrick Rose coming back too soon, and then Russell Westbrook actually taking his time with the process of being injured and then getting through that and just taking extra precautions to make himself come back as strong as he could, whereas Derrick Rose kind of just jumped into it.
Well, I mean, the good thing for the Raptors is we don't really have any injuries going into the playoffs. I mean, DeMar Carroll, he's kind of still rehabbing everything. But they look to be a healthy squad. But, I mean, you look at last year, and the Pacers weren't even in this.
And one thing that's going to be really important for the Raptors, I feel like in this series especially, is Luis Scola. Now, that might sound weird, but the guy's got a lot of experience, and I think that he can carry the team and be that, like, outside range and then also be inside and be really pivotal for the offensive aspect that the Raptors can bring to the Pacers.
You know, when he first came, I didn't really think he was going to be all of that, and he didn't really get soaring off the ground or anything, but I feel he was one of those guys that had to kind of get a feel for the area.
He's a depth player. That's what he brings to the team, just extra depth, right? And he has in the past been better at FIBA World Basketball. He's been like an amazing player in that, but not really ever been able to convert that to the NBA. But I think that he's going to be a really pivotal part of the playoffs for the Raptors.
Now, Trevor, with what Thomas just said, making, a player come in from not being overly successful in the NBA to being fairly productive with the Raptors, do we, again, give the credit to Dwayne Casey for working with his team, or do we give it to Masai Ujiri for putting the team together?
It's ultimately on the player to do the performance no matter what the coach does. So obviously Ujiri, it's a combination of Ujiri, Casey, and the player, and I don't really know which one over the three of them. I guess I would say the player is the one that's most important in trying to improve the player from where he was before.
Do you guys think that Masai Ujiri put his place in Raptors history, and it's going to be many years until he is gone after the FU Brooklyn that happened the other year?
I don't think that can say he's part of Raptors history just yet. Give it a couple seasons and let this guy grow, but I think he'll be around for a very long time.
Well, because, it's been the first time that the Raptors, the past couple of years, they've been really, one of the top teams in the NBA ever since kind of the Vince Carter thing, and the most hype we had since Vince Carter was Chris Bosh, and we all know how well that went. So, I don't know. I want to give a lot of credit to Masai Ujiri for putting these squads together and absolutely hammering the New York Knicks. And I want to talk on the Knicks just really quickly. What in the hell is going on with the Knicks? Carmelo Anthony not doing great, but Kristaps Porzingis, everybody, Knicks fans were crying at the draft when they picked him. I remember that, and I thought, this is a stupid pick. Now, he's amounted to a lot, yes. But Phil Jackson apparently wants out of there, and he wants to go to the Lakers. If you guys had to pick one team, who do you think is going to be better next year? The Los Angeles Lakers or the New York Knicks?
It'd be super interesting to see the Lakers bloom without Kobe, and honestly, I think that they will. I think that this is going to grow into a different team, and it's going to bloom into something that wasn't previously there. So they're going to be playing a lot different. I say the Lakers, to be honest.
Well, Trevor, a question for you. Is there any kind of desire for people to play in New York anymore?
I think there always is, just because it's New York. It's the same thing with Los Angeles because it's Los Angeles. Yeah, like the city itself is kind of its own it's intriguing itself because of the city. And I think the Knicks have a solid fan base in the New York area as well, which doesn't hurt. And the East is a little bit easier to play in than the West, which, if you're deciding between LA and New York, you might lean New York.
And so for the reigning champion Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry hurts his ankle in Game 1. Tonight, it's questionable for Game 2. Does it matter, or is the Warriors just that good?
It can have an impact on the game, but I honestly feel like the Warriors have enough depth within the team to cover for it, and I think that they will get the W in Game 2. And then Steph Curry will be back shortly after.
Well, Trev, what you feeling? Because, they've gone through the season multiple times without their superstars. Now, arguably, Steph Curry's the biggest one of them all, but they've done it with multiple superstars out.
What's the game plan going, and how does that change if Steph Curry's not in the lineup? Because, I feel like, and I don't watch a lot of Golden State Warriors basketball because they're on the West Coast, and I can't stay up all night. I wonder how it changes the game plan, because I feel like the game plan a lot of the times is give the ball to Steph and let Steph, shoot it or do whatever he's going to do with it. And obviously, if he's not on the court, they don't have that option.
Well, they won the first game by 26. It's Golden State. They're not going to go down that easily. And, Houston, who do you rely on? Dwight Howard to prevent things from happening, and James Harden to shoot. Take out one of them, you have a pretty good shot. And the Golden State Warriors, they have the depth, and I don't think that Houston's going to be able to put up much of a fight. Now, moving to the NHL. Trevor, this is a sad, sad time for Senators territory. I think maybe this is good. They're shaking things up. Pierre Dorion is now the GM, if I said that right. If I did not, please yell, thank you. Murray is the advisor. 2 days later, they fire the entire coaching staff. Why are they firing everybody? Because the other year, granted, it was one of those kind of fluke years that you weren't expecting Ottawa to make the playoffs, but they did. Obviously, this year, it didn't happen, and there's not really much hope, per se, for lack of a better term. Trevor, how are you feeling being a diehard Senators fan?
Well, at what point do you stop blaming coaching? And it's not just the Senators that are like this. I feel like it's every professional sporting franchise where the coaching is always the first to get blamed, and it doesn't always result in people getting fired. Dwayne Casey's still coaching the Raptors. So, it doesn't always result in a firing, but, people always look to coaching, and I don't know if coaching was necessarily the issue here. I do think the Sens are interesting, right? Because this is a team that's been rebuilding for the last 5 years, but they've had peaks where they've been able to make the playoffs. They beat the Habs in a first-round series a few years ago, and so they've had peaks which have kind of gotten fans excited, like the run last year as well. And then there's kind of that downfall after it, and I don't know really where they are in the rebuild. I think they're kind of retooling and just trying to piece everything together. They have those core pieces. And ultimately, it'd be interesting to see who they hire as the head coach, because I think they want an experienced guy, not somebody new. And it'll be interesting to see if they consider Mark Crawford.
Evgeny Malkin for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Taking time off for anything, especially an injury in a sports, you come back, you're not as solid, you're not as quick, you're not up to speed with many things. Practices versus games, totally different situation. Comes back for Game 2, and the Penguins lose. Does this matter? Are they going to kind of give Evgeny Malkin less ice time, give him more ice time, trying to get him back into the swing of things? What do you do if you're the Penguins?
Where do you rank Malkin in terms of the depth chart on the Penguins? Is he number 2 behind Crosby? Is he down a bit more? I think he's right up there, behind Sidney Crosby in terms of the most talented players on the team. You go Crosby, Malkin. Whenever you can put Malkin back in the lineup, I feel like you do. Now, Don Cherry made an interesting point the other day, saying that with Malkin, you can never have too much time to come back from an injury, especially jumping right into the playoffs. And I can see where he's coming from that point. But they're in tough against the New York Rangers. They still don't have Marc-Andre Fleury. They don't know if and when they'll get Marc-Andre Fleury. They don't even have Matt Murray. They're on goaltenders number 2 and 4, I think, or 3 and 4 anyway. When you're thinking about goaltending and what that's going to be going forward, then if you have a chance to add somebody that can create offense like Malkin, you do it whenever you can.
Now, not to not get your opinion on that, Thomas, but we got to move along. So there's 2 series that are kind of, you wouldn't really think are going the way that they are, and that would be San Jose versus the Los Angeles King and Nashville versus Anaheim. Now, personally, I think the big upset in this one thus far is Nashville beating Anaheim, but I know a lot of the talk was about how does Nashville take it if they don't do well in the playoffs, because they basically threw all their chips in for this year. They got rid of Seth Jones, which was their young star, brought in some other players, and they were really hoping to do something. They made it in the playoffs. They weren't sure if they were going to, but they're actually doing pretty good against the Anaheim Ducks. And then San Jose versus LA, I mean, the Ducks, the Kings, the Sharks, all 3 of them are in a category of their own in the NHL. Of those 4 teams, who do you think is more likely to come out on top? San Jose, Los Angeles, Nashville, or Anaheim? And I know they're all in different series, but I'm just asking, out of those 4 teams, who do you think is going to come out of this round?
For me, it's San Jose and Anaheim. I really like Anaheim. You guys know from last year that I picked them to win the whole thing. I really like the team that they have, and San Jose just has a whole bunch of momentum right now, and I really can see them getting to the second round.
Trevor, those 4 teams, who do you think is going through?
Well, I mean, Anaheim, I think, is that kind of obvious one to look at. I mean, they're pretty much the best team in the Western Conference. I'm a little surprised by what's happened with LA losing those first 2 games to San Jose. San Jose is an interesting case because that's a team that we kind of thought were past their prime. They take the C away from Thornton, give it to Pavelski, and they fire McClellan, bring in DeBoer, and just like that, for this playoffs, they seem like they have a new life. And that's without Antti Niemi in goal. They have Martin Jones and James Reimer as a goaltending duo, which would have had me really nervous going into the playoffs if I was a Sharks fan. I mean, I still think LA is the second best team out of the 4, even though they're in that 2-0 hole going on the road. So, I mean, I'm with Thomas. Ultimately, I say Anaheim is the best of the 4.
All right, quickly, the final thing, the Toronto Blue Jays. Michael Saunders will take off first and taking over for Kevin Pillar. Blue Jays bats aren't really doing a whole lot. Team in general not winning. Trevor, Thomas, Trevor, we'll start with you. When do we start panicking? 2, do we or no?
Well, we're in the middle of April, so at least another couple of months before panic needs to set in. This is going to be a tight AL East race all year long, so really, I mean, I don't think any panic will start to come in unless this team is starting to slip in August. The whole leadoff thing is interesting because if I had my pick at a leadoff hitter, you keep everybody else in the same order and you make a few tweaks, but I mean, with Donaldson, Bautista, and Edwin after that, my choice for leadoff hitter would be somebody like Tulowitzki. And he is slumping right now, and maybe moving him in the lineup could help him. But the reason why I want Tulo at the top of that lineup is because it means he's getting more at-bats than anybody else, and he deserves it. He's struggling right now, but the dude's a great hitters, just like Donaldson, Bautista. If you have those guys at the top of your lineup, they're getting the most at-bats in each game. So, the leadoff spot only comes up once a game in the top of the first. So that's all that really matters for. I don't want Pillar there because he's not one of the best 4 hitters on the team. Same thing with Saunders, although I feel like Saunders is a better hitter so far this year. Definitely that's the case. But, I mean, so yeah, I want my best hitters at the top of the lineup. Tulo is the way to go if you want that to happen.
Thomas, have you hit the panic button yet?
Okay, so you guys all know, everyone knows that I don't really watch baseball that much, but one thing that I do know, I've seen everyone on Twitter and Facebook freaking out about the Blue Jays, and one thing that I do know for sure is that it's way too early to be panicking. I think this team just needs to figure itself out. It's way too early in the season for everyone to be freaking out about this situation.
You know why they're freaking out? You know why they're freaking out? Trevor, do you know why everybody's freaking out?
Because they jumped on the bandwagon.
Trevor knows. Everybody jumped on the Blue Jays bandwagon last year. Everybody. I was the only one that used to wear a Blue Jays jersey, apart from you two. And now we're seeing around the school, everybody's buying the hats, everybody's wearing the shirts. They're all fakes, at least so far. They're all bandwagon jumpers. And if you are a person right now freaking out about the Blue Jays, just wait. Just wait. And that's it for this episode of BSS Sports. Make sure to like us on Facebook at BSS Sports. Follow us on Twitter, the same thing. And check us out on YouTube, archiving on there at BSS Productions. We'll catch you on next Monday.